Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is part 5 of my DevOps Bootcamp series. In this video, we will learn how to install Jenkins, what is Jenkins, and how we can integrate it with the GitHub. So to start with, what is Jenkins? So Jenkins is a popular open source automation server that enables developers to automate their tasks related to building their code, testing their code, and deploying their applications to the servers. And Jenkins supports integration with numerous tools and it is highly customizable, and that makes it essential component for CI/CD pipelines. So what Jenkins provides, like continuous integration, continuous delivery, automated testing, documentation, static code analysis, deployment, security scanning. So you can just think of it like a tool which provides you the capability of integrating it with almost any of the tools that you wanted to work with based on your application requirements, and you can just integrate it with Jenkins to do any kind of automation. Like if you want to compile your code in an automated way, and if you are using Gradle, Jenkins provides integration with Gradle. Just an example, you are using Maven, so you can integrate it with Maven. So there is no one tool, it's like a lot of tools it integrates with perfectly and create your CI CD pipeline for your application. So, what are the installation options and the requirements for the Jenkins? So, traditionally, we generally deploy Jenkins on any direct VMs and maybe the AWS EC2 instances also, or like physical servers. But if you deploy it on the EC2 instances, you have to manage those servers, and down the line, you need to ensure those are patched, those instances are getting patched also, security compliant, and lot of stuff. So those, I mean, in that case you have to actually manage those servers, and that is also one more task that you have to do. So instead of that, now as we have seen the popularity of the ECS with Fargate option, so in this particular video I will be using ECS Fargate, which is a serverless technology. So in this process, it just simplify your deployment process by eliminating the need to manage your underlying infrastructure. So now you really don't need to think about the servers. You just need to provide the memory and the CPU requirement for your Jenkins instance, and you are good to go. So we will be exploring that option in this video. So the requirements for Jenkins on ECS Fargate. You need an AWS account, and in this example I'm using the public IP. So you need one VPC with at least one public subnet and the security groups that will permit access to the Jenkins, and Jenkins default port is 8080. The second, ECS cluster. So we will be creating a new cluster using Fargate launch type so that we can launch our task using Fargate instead of EC2 instances. EFS volume. So we'll use EFS volume, which means persist the data. If we don't use the EFS volume, it will by default just use the ephemeral storage, and that ephemeral storage will get lost whenever your Jenkins instance get restarted or your ECS task get restarted. And in general, AWS generally provide patches on their ECS Fargate instances, and they restart it whenever they have their patch schedule cycle date is. So it is always important to use the EFS volume, otherwise you will lost all your data, which includes your plugins, your jobs, anything related to the Jenkins. IAM roles to grant ECS task access, whatever permission is required, and the task definition. So we'll create a task definition that will actually run the Jenkins container. Now we will learn how to create an Amazon Elastic file system. So Amazon EFS is a scalable, fully managed NFS storage solution provided by AWS, and it can be used by various AWS services and on-premise resources as well. And what is the purpose of EFS in Jenkins? So it will actually store all your Jenkins configurations like workspace, job details, job artifacts. It will have all the configurations related to Jenkins stored there. So it is like a storage for the Jenkins. So to start with, you will go there and click on create file system, and we'll put the name. So you can put it like Jenkins hyphen demo, And you need to select the VPC because this resource is specific to VPC also. So we are working on this particular VPC. So we will use this, and here you can see choose the VPC where you will have your EC2 instances or ECS containers or anything. Wherever your AWS service is, you will create the file system on that particular VPC only. And we'll click on customize, and we are creating the regional that will provide you the highest level of availability and durability. You can enable the backups. For this video I'm just disabling this option, but yes, it is a best practice because it is your actual storage for any of your application. So it is always better to have the enable automatic backup, so in case if something happen, you always have a backup and you can just use that backup and launch your application again using that backup. Lifecycle management, this is similar to what we have in the S3 objects. Like for the files which have infrequent access, you can define those. Transition into archive storage, if they are not accessed in the 90 days or 120 days, transition into standard. So you can set those lifecycle policy for your EFS storage, and this is helpful for your price because based on your storage of data, your price will increase. So based on that, you can actually set it up. I'm not touching anything in this video. And enable encryption of data at rest, and we are going with the enhanced, and elastic is recommended, so we will go that. And additional settings, will just go with the general purpose and click on next. Again, now network access. So now we really need to provide the network access of your EFS storage that you are creating. So here first you will be selecting your VPC and then the mount target. So what is mount target? So mount target is a network interface in an availability zone that enables an EFS file system to be accessed by your EC2 instance or your containerized ECS task. And each mount target, here you can see that, and they also recommend that create one mount target per availability zone. If you don't do that, then you will have cross AZ, and the latencies issues you will see, they based on the performance, you will see some performance is degraded also. So it is always recommended that you create one mount target per availability zone. So here you can see that in my VPC we have three availability zones. So I have selected these three availability zones, and then you will need to select the subnets. So generally your VPC has private and public subnet. So for the EFS mount targets, it is advisable, or it is the best practice that you will have the private subnet IDs instead of the public. So we'll just go with the private one. And this is your the another one, and we'll just go with the private, and this is another one, we'll go with the private, right? And the IP address, it will automatically take it, and the security group. So for all the EFS volume, you need NFS traffic, allow NFS traffic from the clients like EC2 instance or ECS containers, so that they can access it. So this particular EFS is associated with one of the security group. So let me just so I have already this EFS demo. I will show you how this is what is in this security group, but I'll just select this first EFS demo. So now you can see that I have set the mount targets for all my three availability zones and with all the private subnets, and assign the security group. And this security group has a rule of that it opens a 2049 port from this particular VPCs. So if I go there and if I show you EFS, So here you can see that inbound rule type NFS, port range is 2059 and source is your VPC Cedar Brock. Okay, so now we have all this set up. So we'll click on next, and this option we are not selecting this, and click on next and just click on create. So here you can see that this file system is getting created, and this network, if you click on network, you will see that it is in the creating state. It is creating all these mount targets. So like you can see that I have created my mount target in 3 availability zones, and the reason behind it, for redundancy, it is recommended that you create mount targets in multiple AZs. By doing this, resources in different AZs can connect to a local mount target, ensuring minimal latency and fault tolerance. Otherwise, it will be if your instance in other AZs and connecting to a mount target which is in different AZ, it will involve the cross AZ traffic, and that will also include the latency, like delay it, and have the additional cost as well. And we have created all our EFS in the AFS mount target in private subnet as well. So it is getting created. So while this is creating, so now you have this EFS volume, you have created the network also. The next part is access point. So what is access point? The access point provides a way to manage access to your EFS volume. So currently your EFS volume is like a blank file structure. There is nothing there. So this is where you can actually create it. And what they do, they define the root directory. So like, let me just click on create access point, and you can point it any name. So in this example, I'm just doing Jenkins home and the root directory path. So what is this? The folder in that EFS file system is accessible from that access point. So it is like a folder structure. So I'm going with where Jenkins home. You can put any name, any path, whichever you want to, but I'm just taking this example. And then the user ID. So this is like a POSIX permissions, your owner group and permission settings for the directory. So the Jenkins file path directory is always runs with the Jenkins user. So I'm just putting this 1000. This is the UID number of the Jenkins. If you go to the Jenkins documentation, you will get this number also. So I'm going with this. So, and the secondary group ID, we don't need it. And same thing for this as well. Owner user ID, owner group ID, and the access point permission. So for Jenkins 755 is good enough. So this is basically your actual folder in your EFS volume, and you are saying that that folder will be created with this Jenkins user, and that will have this permission also. So now click on create access point. So we'll just see, yeah, you can see this mount targets is available and the access point. And here you can see this is your access point ID, your path, and all the details related to your access point. So this is how you create the EFS volume. And if you click on this attach, so here you can see how you can mount it. So in this video, we really don't need to do anything manually. So we really don't need to mount anything. But yes, if you have to log in and see how your folder structure looks like, and you want to do any kind of manual changes, though those are not um, required, and I will not say that that's a best practice to change your EFS storage manually. But yes, because of any reason you have to go there, these are the two commands that you can use it. For that, you need to launch one EC2 instance within the same VPC and then run these commands. So this will mount that EFS volume onto that EC2 instance, and then you can directly um, just use it like your Linux file system. Okay, so now we have this EFS volume created. So now we are at Elastic Container Service, where we will be creating a new cluster. So click on create cluster and you can put any name. So I'm going with Jenkins demo, And infrastructure, we are going with AWS Fargate, so we'll go with that. And we can enable this container insights that will just provide you more monitoring, and then just click on create. So this is how you create the ECS cluster, which is free. There is no charges of running any ECS cluster. So this is how it is creating right now. The next part is the task definition. So let's just go here, and we will be creating a new task definition for the Jenkins. So here, if you go to the Docker Hub, so we are just using the Docker Hub image of the Jenkins image directly from the Docker Hub to run it on the ECS cluster. So here, if you go to Jenkins, you will see these are the images that are provided by the Jenkins that you can use it. So I'm going, so this is the LTS version, which is recommended, that it is says that long-term version. So I will just go with this particular version, Jenkins LTS JDK 17. You can choose whichever you want to, but in this example, I'm going with this particular image to run the Jenkins master. So after that, you will just click on create new task definition like this, and put the name. So I'm just putting Jenkins demo 1, and your infrastructure is Fargate, and this is where you provide your CPU memory. So for the, you can change it according to the requirement of your application. I'm just going with the 2 CPU and 4 GB for now. And this basically, this is the where you just provide your infrastructure. So based on the load and based on the users of your Jenkins instance, you can go with the CPU and the memory. But in general, 2 CPU and 4 GB memory is enough for small workloads, and based on your requirements you can always increase it. And the task role, so this is the IAM roles that you need to create for your uh, for your ECS cluster, for your ECS task to have access to do all the stuff that your Jenkins job will be doing. So this is like you are providing the permission. So let me just go to the IAM, and so if you go to the IAM and click on roles, so okay, so here you can see that I have created this Jenkins demo task role. So here you can see that we are assigning this a power user access, and the trust relationship, you can see that it is ECS task Amazon AWS.com. So this is how you create an IAM role, and then here we will just select this ECS task execution. No, we will just select this Jenkins demo task role. And this is where you provide the container details. So I will go with this like Jenkins, and this is your repository. This is your image. So it will automatically pull the image from the Docker Hub. If you want to change it with different registry, you might need to do the different configuration, but this will automatically take this particular image from the Docker Hub. And for the private registry, as I said, if you have other registry and you are using any private Docker image, you have this option also, private registry authentication. And now the container port. So this Jenkins by default runs on 8080 port. So we are just putting container port 8080. And the another port that is required is 50,000 that we use for Jenkins slave communication. So we will see later, but for now, that's what we needed. And this is simple log collection, so that all your Jenkins logs will go to the Amazon CloudWatch. So that is good to have that. And then we will use the volume. So you can see that if you don't use the volume, it means there is no storage, and it will just use the Fambrer storage, And as soon as you start your Jenkins task, or AWS actually patches their Fargate task, so all your data will be lost. So that is the reason we first created the EFS volume, so that we can use it while creating a task definition. So now we will create a volume. So here you can see I have provided the name, configure a task definition, volume type, and this is the file system, and the Jenkins access point ID, and the container mount point. So when your Jenkins is running inside a container, Jenkins default path is this, where it store all the configuration related to your Jenkins system. So we are just mounting this particular path. So every data is on this particular path we are mounting to this volume, so that it will not get lost. That's it. And now we will just click on create. So here you can see how does this look like in the JSON. We have this image and the port mappings. So here you can see the container port 8080. It automatically takes the host port when we have um, AWS VPC in the network selection, and mount point, log configuration, and this is the volume details. Yeah. And this is where you have the CPU and the memory. So now just go to your Elastic Container Service cluster and create a new service. So we'll just go there, and this is the Fargate and the service, and this is where we provide this Jenkins demo 1, the revision 1, service name Jenkins, service type, desired task. We are not using any of these. Networking, we need to select it. So in this particular example, I am just using the public one. So I'm just selecting all the private subnets. And I'm selecting this Jenkins security group that I'm using it here. So let me just show you how does that security group look like. So let's just go to EC2, click on security group, Jenkins, added inbound role. So here you can see, so what we need, we want to access this Jenkins master. So for now, so and it is running on 8080 port. So I have this 8080 port, and from the custom, so currently it has my IP, and you can delete this. And this particular we needed for the Jenkins slave communication 50,000 within the VPC. We'll talk about this later, but yes, for now this is 8080, and from where you want to access it. So generally the company has some client VPN, so you can use directly VPC Cedarburg and then access this URL. Otherwise you have to have it open for everyone. So based on your network configuration and the security, you can define it, and click on save rules, and that's it. Click on create. Okay, so now you can see that the service is created, and if you click on task, you can see it is in the running state as well. And now let's get the public IP. So here you can see this is my public IP, and we'll go there, and 8080. So this is open for my IP, so it will work. And so first time when we log into the Jenkins, it asks for the admin password. So if that admin password, you can get it in the logs also. That is the um, easiest way to get the password. So here you can see that you are getting this password. So we'll just use it and paste it here and click on continue, and we'll just say install suggested plugin. You have an option to just select suggested plugins as required, but we are just going with the basic default setup. Okay, so now you can create your first admin user. It is recommended. If you don't create it, it will again ask you that initial big password, so it's better to create one. So I'm just going with the default admin. You can create whatever you want and click on save and continue. and this is your Jenkins URL. So just note that, because I'm just using the Fargate task using the public IP. This IP will change as I always restart this machine, restart this task. So I'm going with this. It will work perfectly fine until you don't restart your task. But as soon as you restart your task, this IP will get changed. So click on save and finish. And there you can see that your Jenkins is ready, and you can see how does it look like.